Yesterday, as we all know, a jury in Minneapolis convicted Derek Chauvin of second and third-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter in the death of George Floyd. Our system of justice worked. The jury members listened to the evidence, did their duty, came back with a verdict. As we go forward as a nation, there is a lot for us to learn from this great tragedy. George Floyd's death laid bare some of our deepest divisions in our country. Our goal, my goal, all of our goal, should be to work every single day to bring us together as a people, to bring us together as a country. I want to talk now about police reform in Ohio. There have been some things that we have been able to do by executive action. On June 17th of last year, I ordered every cabinet agency to review the use of force policies and also to ban the use of chokeholds. That has been done. So every department under my direct jurisdiction, the Highway Patrol, the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, and others, have now banned the use of chokeholds. Last summer, I ordered the Highway Patrol to start the action to obtain body cameras for everyone. For some time, they have had dash cameras, but I felt it was appropriate now for them to lead by example and to have the body cameras. The purchasing of these body cameras has begun, and we would anticipate within a short period of time, the members of the Highway Patrol will always have on the body cameras. Next, we established the Office of Law Enforcement Recruiting within the Office of Criminal Justice Services, again, to help local law enforcement in this area. Next, I ordered the Ohio Community Police Collaborative to develop a standard for law enforcement responses to mass protests. And I'm happy to say that they have now adopted a uniform standard. Let me talk for a moment about several budget initiatives that are now in front of the General Assembly. Several things that are pertinent were contained in our budget. We had $10 million we provided for law enforcement body cameras for local law enforcement around the state of Ohio. In addition to that, we provide in our budget $1 million in grant funding to support local police agencies and their innovative initiatives to recruit women and minorities. These are two things that are contained in our budget. Let me now turn to legislative proposals. I talked this morning with State Representative Phil Plummer. Phil is a former sheriff of Montgomery County. He's been working on a law enforcement reform package. We have worked with him on this. I'm happy to say that he advises me that this bill will now be ready to be introduced within the next few days. This bill will increase accountability and transparency in law enforcement. It was developed with the help of the Ohio Attorney General's Office, of veteran law enforcement officers, organizations including the Ohio Association of Chiefs of Police and the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association, as well as civil rights leaders. This bill will do a number of things. Let me just mention several. We'll establish a peace officer oversight board. It is time that in Ohio we begin to treat law enforcement as the professionals that they are. What does that mean? It means that in other professions, if you're a doctor, you're a nurse, you're a lawyer, we could go on and on. There's not only state regulations, there's a state board, there's a state disciplinary board, a state board that has the ability to pull a license, to suspend a license. It's time we do that in the area of law enforcement. Again, it is a profession. We should treat it as such. Next, the bill also establishes a use of force database, a statewide use of force database, so that the almost 1,000 law enforcement agencies in the state of Ohio would report use of force, and that would be contained in one central location whenever the use of force was used. Next, it would establish an officer discipline database, an officer discipline database. And again, this goes back to treating law enforcement as the profession that it is. So the situation we have now is someone can go from one police department to another, and if they left under bad terms and that officer doesn't even report that he worked at the other law enforcement agency, and it's clear across the state, one law enforcement agency may have no idea that he had been worked for another law enforcement agency. Again, an officer discipline database. Fourth, will require an independent investigation of officer-involved critical incidents. Again, outside, impartial, coming in, I think will give people more confidence in the end results. I think there's also a general agreement that we need more police training. I've never met a police officer who did not think that more training was good. We need an independent, sustainable funding source for law enforcement training in Ohio. Last month, as part of the need to address law enforcement training in the state, I asked Justice of Criminal Justice Services to send out a survey to law enforcement agencies all throughout the state of Ohio. And we asked them to identify training needs and the type of training that they actually have conducted in the last year. Aspirationally what they want, but also what have they done. The survey is back on the 30th this month. The information from this survey is going to be used to assist in studying the potential for developing a long-term funding solution for law enforcement training in Ohio. I know, talking with Phil Plummer this morning, I've not looked at the language, but he tells me that there is language and money in the bill that he has introduced in regard to law enforcement training. Once we have established an independent funding source, we need to mandate minimum continuing professional education training hours, just as we do in other professions. Certainly, that should always include de-escalation and use of force training.